Welcome to the Faith Geek Podcast. The Faith Geek Podcast is your weekly source for all things current in geek culture. From entertainment to sports, parenting to religion. Be sure to check us out on the web by visiting www.thefaithgeek.com. Now, let us welcome Brent Whetstone and Joe Gerbery.
Again, welcome to the Faith Geek Podcast, episode number 7. Today's program is sponsored by the Final Cut Barbershop in Vienna, Ohio, who's going to be celebrating their grand opening this July. So if you go in July 1st through July 12th and mention the Faith Geek Podcast, you will receive 1/2 off of your haircut. So July 1st through July 12th at the Final Cut Barbershop in Vienna, Ohio, to celebrate their grand opening, go in and mention the Faith Geek, and you'll receive 1/2 off your haircut. So that's our sponsor
only
today.
Cutting half of your hair? Or
no, they'll just okay. 1/2 off your total bill. For those of you listening in and those of you watching live on YouTube, you'll notice that Joe Gerbery is not with me unless he went through gender reassignment and
very
grew
quickly
blonde hair in like a week, which didn't happen. So anyway, we're welcoming live today in studio Heather Whetstone, my wife. Welcome, Heather. For those of you who don't know, Heather is actually the producer of the Faith Geek Podcast and the editor-in-chief of the Faith Geek blog. So welcome to the show, Heather. We're so glad that you've decided to join us today.
Thank you.
And fill in for Joe, who's out on a hot date right now with Karen.
Baseball game.
At a baseball game.
Yes.
They're at the Indians game, which I'm sure we'll hear all about in his blog coming out this week. So go Tribe. Let's bring home a win, hopefully.
Yes.
So Heather, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm married to the Faith Geek.
That would be me.
I think that's all that people really need to know.
That is all they need to know.
No, gosh, I'm a geek from way back. I have very geeky parents, so I was born into it and was lucky enough to meet up with a fellow geek a couple years ago, and the rest is geek history.
What
right?
Growing up, you said that your parents were geeks, so you obviously were a geek. What were you into growing up?
Really anything classic sci-fi. My dad is really into that genre, so I grew up with the original Star Trek. I grew up with Doctor Who. I was around when Star Wars started, and that's one of my favorites. So, yeah, just about anything. Tolkien, you name it, we did it.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Doctor Who. I actually was not a Doctor Who fan.
I know, and I married you anyway.
Until I met Heather. I actually, she told me the premise of the show, and it was something like, hey, I would never be interested in this. I am a Star Trek fan to the core. Like, there's no way that I'm going to get into this British stuff. Now, I mean, there were British shows that I was into, Allo, and like Faulty Towers and stuff on PBS I was way into, but sci-fi, that was an American thing to me. There's no way that I would like this British doctor. And then Torchwood came out, and we actually started watching Torchwood, and I became a huge fan of Torchwood.
Addict, I think is the word.
Yeah, I was addicted, like literally addicted to Torchwood. John Barrowman, like we're going to be talking about geek crushes. I have to admit,
the list. Yeah.
I have kind of a crush, a boy crush on John Barrowman.
That's one we can share.
Yeah. So I love John Barrowman, and like the entire cast on Torchwood was just awesome. But they kept on mentioning this doctor. And I'm like, okay, there's obviously this backstory going on with this doctor character that I need to know about. So I went on Netflix, like I'm a Netflix junkie. I live on Netflix. And I watched the first episode of the reboot of Doctor Who with David Eccleston. And I hated it.
And he didn't like it.
I absolutely hated it. Eccleston is not one of the doctors that I like. I couldn't get into it. And we were talking to a friend, and I don't remember exactly who it was, but they were like, you got to check out this Tennant guy.
Yes. Skip to number 10.
So we skip.
Well, some of us skipped.
You didn't skip, but no. I skipped forward to David Tennant. And I'm like, holy crap.
A whole different
I love this guy. Yeah. Like, I love the Doctor. I love everything about the Doctor. David Tennant makes my list of, like, boy crushes, man crushes. that I have, and I only have 3 of them. It's okay. Like, it's a bromance, so it's all right.
It is.
But Tenet's on that, along with Chris Hardwick. Chris Hardwick, I love you. If you're listening, you are my hero. I love you, Chris Hardwick. Anyway, so, like, I really got into the Doctor at that point. So it's because of Heather that I actually got into Doctor Who. And, like, that's the fandom that I most identify with now. Like, I still love Star Trek. Star Trek is, like, the core of my existence in, like, the sci-fi fantasy genre. I got my Star Trek tattoo that I got as soon as I turned 18.
Which may be why we started dating. Could be.
I got it as soon as I turned 18. Like, I'm a total Romulan fan. So I have the Romulan emblem on my arm, and so, like, I'm all for the Romulans, and like I said, I turned 18. The first thing I did, I woke up on my birthday when I got that tattoo, and I love Star Trek, but Doctor Who, I think it surpasses, like, all sci-fi series in just, like, awesomeness and what they're able to accomplish. I mean, I've never ever in the history of watching TV in the 32 years that I've been alive seen a series be able to do what Doctor Who has been able to do with, like, hey, we're going to kill off the main character every so often, but we're going to continue to maintain our fan base the way that we maintain it.
Although I'll be interested to see how many of the current fan base stick around for...
Well, and we'll talk about that in future podcasts when we focus in getting closer to the Doctor Who premiere. We're going to talk about the transition from, like, the young, hot Matt Smith to the older, more refined Peter Capaldi, who I think is just going to be phenomenal and do things for the show, like, take it to the next level. Obviously, I love Tennant, I love Matt Smith, but I think Peter Capaldi is going to bring something to the show that those two weren't able to do in their styles.
A depth.
Yeah. So that's how, because of Heather, I've been able to
for that one.
experience and fall in love with Doctor Who. And then Star Wars. Weren't you at the premiere of Star Wars: A New Hope?
I don't remember if I was at the premiere. I did see it at a movie theater, so...
It wasn't at the drive-in?
No, I actually saw it at the mall when we still had a movie theater in our mall a long time ago.
So for those of you, our local listeners, you know that the mall has
dates me. I
had a movie theater since, like, the late 80s, early 90s. So Heather's pretty old. She's older than me. What can I say? But yeah, so Heather helps around. Normally you're not going to see her on camera or hear her on the microphone because she's actually
hiding behind the camera.
Hiding behind the camera and behind the microphone.
And writing you nasty notes on her.
Yeah, she's our producer, so she's the one who's hollering at us in our ear, so to speak, about what we should be talking about if we're missing something, especially when we're doing live interviews like we did last week with Jason Satterland, which was awesome. If you haven't heard that interview... make sure you go back into the archives and check it out. Jason's a really awesome guy. We enjoyed having him onto the program.
And he has good taste in pizza.
He has good taste in pizza. And then a couple things that we're excited about coming out on the Faith Geek blog. We're going to have an anime section launching very soon. So keep your eyes posted to the blog. And then exclusively to the Faith Geek TV station on YouTube, which is where you're watching this now or you'll watch it in the future. We're going to have a science-y program.
Is it really science or is it more...
Listen, we're going to burn stuff and blow stuff
up.
So, like, you're going to want to tune in for that. We're going to be launching that program in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned to the Faith Geek TV for that, exclusively on YouTube, and then on our website, thefaithgeek.com. So that's what's coming down the line for the Faith Geek. We're really excited. If you live locally, there's going to be a lot going on coming up in the next month with Free Comic Book Day and then Star Wars Day, which is the same weekend. So that's going to be really awesome. Nice. So
things in the works.
We've got a bunch of big stuff in the works for that. And you'll be seeing a lot more of the Faith Geek here in Northeast Ohio. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff here in the future. So make sure you stay up to date with our webpage. We'll be actually posting a calendar of events because we have that much stuff going on coming up in the next few months, and then the second half of the year. But today we're here to talk about something, and it's interesting because we actually came up with this topic last night. The show was going to be completely different, and we were working on the show at dinner last night. We went to Garrettsville and ate at Sean's pub, which is a very good eatery. If you're ever in the Garrettsville area, check it out. Great food.
Great fried pickles.
Yeah, the fried pickles were awesome. We had a good time out there. We went out to the Game Emporium, which also, Northeast Ohio people, check out the Game Emporium in Garrettsville. We're actually going to be doing some remotes from out there and sponsoring some game nights. So, like I said, we got a lot going on. But anyway, we were out there and we were planning our show, and we were going to talk about the whole theory of the blue meth from Breaking Bad, causing the zombie apocalypse in The Walking Dead, because that's something that's really popular right now in that fandom circle on the internet. And we were just pulling together our show, and somehow we got on the topic of our geek crushes. And I'm like, you know what? Like, this needs to be our show. This is what we're going to talk about tomorrow.
Well, I think we were talking about redheads.
We were talking about, but I don't know how we got on
because of my meme that I sent to the redhead in my life.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Heather's sister is a redhead. My daughter's a redhead. And she sent her a meme, and I was like, my first crush was a redhead. I was probably 7 years old with my first crush. And if you're not familiar with the movie Willow, you need to check out the movie Willow, because then you'll see who my first
look for the red hair
geek crush is. Joanna Whaley, who still, like 90 years later, is very attractive.
Still, yes.
I remember as a kid watching Willow, and she comes in like her armor, and she's like a lady knight, and she has red hair, and I'm like, holy crap, she's hot.
It was the best of every world, right?
It was. It's like, as a young 7 to 8 year old kid, I'm like, so this is what love is like. Wow. So like, I would watch Willow constantly because I was like madly in love with her. Which is sad, but
I need to dust off my armor or something.
So, like, we were talking about that. Like, okay, we're totally going to talk about our geek crushes. So we're going on and on and on with our geek crushes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my geek crushes. Heather will talk about hers. But if you're listening, from now until April 15th, what I want you to do is I want you to send us who your geek crushes. You can tweet it to us at the Faith Geek. You could put it on our Facebook page. You can email it to us at info@theffaithgeek.com. And then what we're going to do is whoever the people are that are responding, like, here's who our geek crushes are, we're actually going to get like a little bracket like they do in basketball, like they do brackets in basketball. You would know this? Yes. I don't know. I'm asking. I think they do. What is it that March Madness that they're doing right now? Yes. So what we're going to do is we're going to get all the geek crushes out there, and we're going to like put them up against each other.
That's tough.
And then we're going to narrow it down. What do they do in basketball? Is it the Final Four?
Yeah.
And then the Final Four play like the ultimate. Yeah. So we'll do something like the basketball people do. I don't know. Like, I'm not a sports person. Joe's not here.
This is where Joe needs to be here.
No. Joe's going to be listening to this tonight and cracking up, or they might be listening while they're watching the game. But, so we'll do something similar to that, and we'll just take all the geek crushes that you guys put in, and we'll pair them up, and we'll let you guys vote. So, stay tuned.
We're going to pit, like, men against the women down to the best geek crush, or just narrow it down to the final two and call it a draw?
I think it'll be, we'll do women against women, men against men for the geek crushes.
On each side, and then it narrows down.
And then it'll narrow it down to whoever gets the most votes. And hey, listen, in geekdom, like, same-sex crushes, like, it's a thing.
Yeah,
it's nothing. We all do it, so it doesn't mean you're funny or anything like that. Like, so it's okay for guys to vote.
Because we know Brent's not funny. Is that
listen. So, well, the guys, it's okay to vote for guys. And hey, if you like the guy being who you are, hey, that's fine with us too. Like, we're inclusive here at the Faith Geek, so we don't care about that. Just vote, and we'll see out of the top woman and the top man who the ultimate.
I don't think mine are going to feel well, but
crushes. Yes. So my first geek crush was from Willow. Who was your first geek crush?
Mark Singer.
Who is?
Well, I knew him originally from the original V TV series.
Back in...
Don't do that math.
That was in the 70s, right?
It was not in the 70s.
Are you sure?
It was in the 80s, yes.
How old was I when this came out?
I was well into grade school.
Okay, so I was probably still in diapers.
Yes, you were probably still in diapers. Because I think I was in about 3rd grade when...
Okay, so I would have been 2 or 3. But anyway, so Mark Singer from V.
Yes. And the Beastmaster, if you...
Okay, so just... Okay. Hey, geek crushes. So you were young.
I was young.
You were about the same age when I had my geek crush on someone who was actually attractive.
Have you ever seen the Beastmaster? Probably not. He was very attractive.
Didn't he have like a ferret pet?
He did.
Yes.
He had lots of animal pets.
I think I saw that once when I was a child. So then, like, and you're going to sense a theme in my geek crushes as we go on. Because there's an underlying theme and there's an underlying, well, I don't know, genetic disposition with my geek crushes.
Yes,
because, like,
true.
my next geek crush was Leah Thompson from Howard the Duck.
Also a redhead.
Yeah. So I think probably I went from Joanna Whaley from Willow right into Howard the Duck to Leah Thompson. Like,
I love Leah Thompson, but that's a bit of a
genre
skip.
It's a complete genre skip, but it's still that pulp culture.
Yes.
Like, not a good movie, but it's a pulp culture.
It's a pop,
icon type movie. Yeah. So, like, I totally, throughout middle school and into high school, was madly in love with Leah Thompson.
It's a good choice.
I would have married her. Like, if she were into teenage
much younger guys.
By 20 years, I probably would have married her.
Who's counting?
So that would have been my next geek crush, who I was absolutely madly in love with. And Howard the Duck was awesome. Like, I thought it was a great movie. Most people don't, because it's one of those B-class movies. Kind of like Beastmaster.
Yeah. Same.
So, but all the movies, I mean, really, if you think about all the movies in the 80s,
have that sort of
B-class, cheesy kind of movie.
So
who, like, moving on past, like, your V and Beastmaster stage, who would have been your next geek crush?
My next one always gets very mixed results. People are either absolutely on board with it, or
I spit my drink out.
They look at me like I'm crazy.
I was drinking a Diet Coke last night, and I literally spit my Coke and, like, snorted it through my nose because I couldn't believe who your next geek crush was or is.
Yeah, I think still is. I would still count him up there. Jeff Goldblum is my... Give me that look.
Listen, I could hear the crickets from our listeners chirping out there. Like, Jeff Goldblum, really?
He's so smart and witty, though, and it's I think a personality thing for me. Not that he's unattractive, but that I was so drawn to his sarcasm and all of that. Most of the characters he plays sort of resonate on that scale, and
yeah, and he's a great actor. Like, he really is a very, very good actor. But we're gonna move on to that because I don't even know what to say to that. Like,
bad. I've actually had women who absolutely supported that when I've mentioned him.
You're gonna see a trend in these crushes where mine are attractive and Heather's are, I don't know. Smart. They're very smart, intelligent guys.
Yeah, the people we have crushes on mirror the people we marry, so I don't know.
Anyway, moving right along. So, then I get into my Star Trek era.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets real for me. And Counselor Troy from The Next Generation, Marina Sirtis, became, like, my high school crush. I was, like, in love with her.
Gorgeous.
And I actually, when I was 16, I had the opportunity to meet her at a Star Trek convention down in Columbus, where I waited in line to get my picture with her. I got an autograph of her that still hangs up to this day in my office. And And speaking of Star Trek, like, we posted about this on Facebook, and I wish our broadcast would have happened yesterday, because yesterday was First Contact Day.
It was.
So
I'm drinking my Earl Grey tea
in honor of First Contact Day. We actually watched First Contact. We made blue cookies and blue Kool-Aid because our kids think everything Vulcan is blue.
Well, anything alien in general, I think, is supposed to be blue. For them.
So shout out, hey, it was First Contact Day. Like, this time in the future, yesterday, in the future, we're going to be making First Contact, which is totally awesome. I love aliens.
I do too.
Anyway, so shout out to Star Trek and First Contact and everyone who made that possible, meeting Vulcans and taking our civilization to greater heights.
And Marina
Sirtis. Like, she was, it was so awesome. I got to talk to her a little bit and spend some time with her down at the convention.
I got to spend time with George Takei at a conference. Not, I know, on the hot scale, but he was awesome.
I don't think the crush thing would work with him, though.
Well, not for me. It might work better for you. But...
maybe some of our listeners, but George is awesome. Yeah, we follow him and his Oh My.
Meeting him was
Facebook
amazing.
Page.
Yeah.
So you had the opportunity to meet him. And speaking of Star Trek captains, and this isn't necessarily a geek crush, but she kind of is a geek crush because she was the first female captain for Star Trek. Right. And I'm a man who loves power and redheads.
And, well, there you go.
So there's she combines the two.
Yes.
And Kate Mulgrew, I actually had the opportunity to... but it's about me. This is my geek crush. So I had the opportunity. I was working a presidential campaign. I was a college coordinator for the campaign, and I was holding an event where Kate Mulgrew actually spoke, and she took me out to lunch. Well, she took you out to lunch too, but
she took Brent. That's the important part of the
and I'll tell
story.
You, I sat there and I was shaking.
Yeah. Because
Voyager was still on at this time, I think, and they had just wrapped up. I think Voyager was still on,
or had just ended.
Yeah. And so, I'm sitting there across the table from Kate Mulgrew, like this.
I've never seen him rendered speechless, but it actually did happen.
Anyone who knows me, that I can talk for hours upon end with random things.
Yes.
But put me across the table from one of my geek crushes,
and he froze.
And I froze. So we're in Youngstown, and we're in this little Italian diner, this hole-in-the-wall diner. And there she is, Captain Catherine Janeway, sitting across the table from me. And I think she leaned over at one point. She's like, "You can breathe."
You're like, okay.
I was like, okay. So then I just started talking Star Trek with her.
Right.
And, it was really awesome to meet her and have lunch with her and, work a little bit on the campaign with her because she's a really fascinating person.
Yes.
And a redhead. And then my last redhead geek crush, because they're all redheads, is my most recent one, Karen Gillan from Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. So I said you would see this genetic disposition in all my crushes.
No X-Files redhead crush? Or...
that
surprises me.
I wasn't into her.
Wow.
So
I'm surprised.
It was the plain FBI.
But Karen Gillan.
Yeah, the plain FBI black dress thing, just she was plain. So she was awesome.
Yeah.
She brought the faith aspect in to the X-Files because she was the faith anchor for that whole series. But no.
Wow, that surprises me.
Yeah.
But Karen Gillan.
Karen
Gillan.
Love her.
Yes.
Shaved her head. We'll be seeing her in Oculus here pretty soon.
I think I would put her, if I had a female list, she would be on my female list as well. So,
So finish out with your geek crushes.
Oh, well, I have a classic on my list.
Probably someone who's not attractive at all.
I think that women everywhere will agree with me when I say that Harrison Ford.
Okay, Harrison Ford. Yes. I could give you Harrison Ford.
And he's aged remarkably
right, I was going to say,
well,
Harrison Ford still looks very good at 60-something.
Right.
Or is he in his 70s
He might be in his 70s.
I think he might be in his 70s now. Harrison Ford has aged very well, and he still looks the same.
And is still amazingly talented. And
flies
a helicopter and rescues lost children. And
how about that?
He's just cool.
Probably one of my all-time favorite actors.
Yes.
Harrison
absolutely.
Ford. The Indiana Jones series is just phenomenal. Probably one of my biggest, geek... When I am, I need something to, bring up my geekiness, and I need something to, hey, I just had a crappy week. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch Indiana Jones. Mm-hmm. Especially The Last Crusade. That is my all-time favorite Indiana Jones. But even that, Harrison Ford, he looks like Han Solo still.
He does. Yeah.
So, and, I mean, it was 20 years later. Which is pretty odd. So I'll give you Harrison Ford. We finally get to one that I could say, okay, I can
David
see
Tennant,
that.
who I think made your list as well,
David
would
Tennant
round
made
out my list of geek crushes. And
not Matt Smith.
I'm a Tennant person. I love Matt Smith, absolutely. I think he did a phenomenal job. He played the Doctor in such a unique and fun way. Mm-hmm. But Tennant, it's a Shakespeare thing for me.
Right.
Tennant's the Shakespeare actor. And
he is.
He has a kilt. I just love him.
Kilt. What about Peter Capaldi? Do you see him as being one of your potential geek crushes?
Maybe not crush, but I am absolutely just chomping at the bit to see him play this role. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be different, but it's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah. So. Well, and the month leading up to Doctor Who's premiere and Peter Capaldi's premiere, we're going to have every podcast is going to be dedicated to Doctor Who.
My favorite topic on the planet.
So we're going to have people on in the area that are huge Doctor Who people, and then we'll actually be doing something special for the premiere of Doctor Who. So it'll be interesting to see all that and Heather's fangirl syndrome.
My inner fangirl
come
out
for Peter Capaldi.
If you didn't know I was a fangirl, I don't know what would give away.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk about our favorite Doctors later on as we get closer to Doctor Who premiere. But so that's our geek crushes, and it's funny. I think every geek nerd that you talk to, you're gonna have. There's someone that you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I remember when I was in grade school that I was in love with them. So that's what
I was gonna marry Mark Singer when I was young. I was pretty convinced of that.
I don't see it. It didn't happen. So
it was really cute then. So
I'll take your word for it.
His feathered hair. It was It
was the hair. So make sure our listeners, April 4th to April 15th, go ahead and send us who your geek crushes are, either on Twitter, Facebook, or email, and we'll put together that bracket.
But someone out there, Jeff Goldblum. Come on.
Well, you can do Jeff Goldblum because we'll submit ours as well. But it'll be interesting to see who ultimately will hold the title of the Faith Geek hottest geek crush.
Well, if you're making it hottest,
well,
I don't know. Most legitimate
geek crush. We can't say hottest because then it would get rid of everyone on your list. Anyway, tonight there's a couple things that are premiering. One of them's a series premiere, and one of them's a season premiere. And I'm very excited for both of them. I hate that they're both on at the same time. Game of Thrones is coming back, which is going to be completely awesome. Our TV will be live on Game of Thrones. I am absolutely in love with this show.
Yeah.
I just started reading the book, so I'm anxious to see how it all
lines up with
lines up. But after last season and the shock and horror of the Red Wedding, I'm anxious to see what happens. For those of you who don't follow Game of Thrones, let me tell you,
don't fall in love with any characters.
Don't fall in love with characters, because I guarantee you they're gonna die. It's just I think the Nerdist is doing something
second only
funny
to Moffat.
So that's coming out on HBO tonight at 9:00, and we'll be talking about that next week. I'm going to try and blog a little bit about it tonight. And then another one that I'm really excited about, Revolutionary War history is my time of history that I love to study, that I love to read about. And I really got turned on to that in 4th grade. I read My Brother Sam is Dead, which was a phenomenal story about a young man who got involved with the revolutionaries here in America, the rebels as I call them. I'm English and I'm proud of it. all for reunification with Great Britain. Anyway, moving
good
on.
Tea.
With tea. Mm-hmm. So it's about a young man who gets involved with the revolutionaries, and he actually is a spy, a messenger for the spy network that's going on in America during the Revolutionary War period. And so the series that premieres on AMC, which has given us awesome shows like Breaking Bad and The Walking Dead and Mad Men, they're launching this new show called Turn, and it's about America's first spy network.
Yep.
So if you're into American history, if you're into period pieces, Turn is going to be something that's awesome. We're also we'll watch that right after Game of Thrones tonight, and I'm very excited about that. So set your DVRs for one or the other,
or both.
But I recommend watching both of those. Those are the two big things that are premiering tonight on television. And as always, Resurrection will be on, which is another great show. And then Cosmos, which is a great science fiction that they're running. Okay, I could do it. I tried.
I was a little shocked when that came out.
I did with a straight face. Cosmos is a science one. I think they're still running on the Fox networks and like National Geographic. It's leveling out in its ratings. And hey, like if science is your thing,
then it's an in.
That'll be a good one. I don't agree and I don't endorse a lot of what they're talking about, but like they've put a lot of time and effort and money into it. So I think a couple people should at least watch it. I mean, it
was so much better in its first.
Yeah,
I don't know.
When you have
that dates me again, but that's okay.
An atheist comedian writing it, what do you expect?
Yeah.
If you like The Family Guy, you'll love Cosmos because the comedy is about the same.
Or just go back and watch the old Carl Sagan.
Yeah, I recommend the Carl Sagan one. They're not as blatantly anti-Christian or creation.
They were that
hippie love everyone kind of thing back then.
That I was born in.
Go back and watch the original with Carl Sagan. Yeah. Science is awesome. We endorse science here at the Faith Geek.
And blowing things up.
We love everything science. But we also we believe that science was created by something much greater than pond scum. So that's my soapbox for today.
But tell us how you really feel.
I don't get preachy on this show very often. I save that for my religious broadcast. But anyway, so
moving right along.
Moving on.
Yeah.
If I had my producer there, she'd be yelling in my
at you
ear.
From behind the camera. Yes.
It's April, so we got a new round of comic books out, and there's a couple comic books that I'm excited about. The Amazing Spider-Man #1 is coming out. Got the little promo card here. And then Hulk #1 and 2, they're on sale now for April 2014. So make sure you go to your local comic book shop and pick those up. They look really awesome. And then always,
And isn't there an online comic connected to
Turn? I completely forgot. If you go to AMC.com, Turn's Origin, they have a comic right there that you could see the origins of the series Turn, and I was going through it before the show started. It looks really awesome, so it'll give you a little bit of background on that. But make sure you visit your local comic shops, support these guys, and remember, May the 3rd is Comic Book Day,
which is coming up.
Free Comic Book Day. So check out, there's a Free Comic Book Day Facebook page. Check that out. They're posting all the information about it. It's just awesome. It's an awesome way for comic book shops to give back to the community that supports them. And make sure, hey guys, don't order your stuff online. Go and support your local comic book shops. They're a struggling industry now. A lot of the stuff is digital.
Right.
So it's like one of those dying things.
Introduce your kids to it. I mean, our 4-year-old loves to go to the comic book shop and to dig through boxes of comics.
Yeah.
And Free Comic Book Day is like Christmas to him. So.
Absolutely. And as soon as I close out the show today, I'm actually taking him up the street to our comic book shop. We try and get over there once a week. They're great people. So if you're local and you're listening, check out All American Comics and Boardman and Warren. They're really good guys down there. But yeah, I'm all for it. I buy a lot of stuff digital, but I also try and I support locally by going into the comic book shops.
That's my geek roots, or comic books.
Yeah. So Cool. We'll be back next week, guys. With
I'll be back behind the camera.
Heather will be back behind the camera. So thanks for joining us, Heather. It was awesome having you. Joe will be back next week, and we'll be broadcasting on our normal schedule. So we'll be back next week at 2 p.m. Sunday. Make sure you check out all of our latest vlogs on thefaithgeek.com. And then if you don't follow us on Twitter or Facebook, make sure you check us out. We're always posting daily. The blog, we're posting weekly stuff out of each section there, but we're always posting stuff daily on Facebook and Twitter. So give us a follow. Give us a like on Facebook.
Give us your geek crushes.
Give us your geek crushes so we can start putting those brackets together. So you guys have been awesome for listening in. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Faith Geek Podcast. The Faith Geek Podcast is brought to you by thefaithgeek.com, your online Christian resource for all things geek culture. Remember, you can always listen to this and any of our archive shows by visiting www.thefaithgeek.com.